Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome back to the Den of the Wanderer. Today I have another Witchy book review for you guys. You can tell, same cup, same pal, same tea as my last one. I'm filming this in the same day, and I didn't feel like going to make another cup or pouring my cup into another cup because that's just wasteful. So here we are. Today I am reviewing Sharon Blackie's Foxfire, Wolfskin, and Other Stories of Shapeshifting Women. And I can tell you that this is the third time I have filmed this intro because shape-shifting women is very hard for me to say. So, appreciate my efforts, please. This book, I am already going to say right off the top, 4 out of 5 whatevers. Still looking for name suggestions, so please leave those below. A little desperate at this point because I can't keep saying whatevers forever. Or maybe I can. Who knows? Yeah, 4 out of 5. I like this book. It was really interesting. Sharon Blackie was an author recommended to me by Belle. So thank you, Belle, for that recommendation. I have one more book of hers on my list to read. So I will be reading that and then reviewing it for you lovely folks. I like this book. I liked it a lot. It is a story of... It's not a story. It's several stories about various types of shape-shifting sort of characters and the shape-shifting that women do. It takes different sorts of folk tales and mythologies and like reimagines them or retells them in sometimes in a more modern setting and sometimes in an old-fashioned setting, but also in a way that conveys the different experiences of women, especially throughout their lives. It covers a bunch of interesting things. There were a lot of stories in here that I recognized right off the bat, and then there were some that I was like, I've never even heard of this before. So I thought it was really interesting. I also really liked how at the end of the book, the author broke down the different stories and kind of explained them and told like a little bit of the abbreviated version of the original tale so that you would have an idea of where that story came from if you weren't familiar with it, and also you would know what story it was if you wanted to go look it up and get more information on it. So I really appreciate that. I thought that was a very nice, very thorough touch. I like the way that she writes. This audiobook was a pleasure, I will say. It was narrated by several different women narrators. I don't know if they were people of significance. It just seemed like there was a bunch of women with lovely accents all over the UK, and it made the stories a lot more pleasant, and they had sort of an extra little touch to them that I don't think I would have gotten had I read the actual physical copy. The book was not hard to get through, and like I said, the different narrators kept the whole story fresh, and there wasn't ever a point where listening to a narrator I was like, oh gosh, please stop. Everyone was perfect and beautiful, and they had lovely voices and told their tales beautifully. So, why 4 instead of 5? As much as I like this book, I didn't find the stories that she was telling to be particularly deep, I guess. I was looking for something a little less on the nose, maybe. I didn't have to think very hard about what each story was trying to tell me or convey. And so it felt a little bit shallow to me. It might also have to do with the fact that I was also familiar with the majority of the tales, so I knew right away where the story was going. That might have had an impact on it. Maybe your experiences will be different. So I guess of the stories that I've been reading a lot of books sort of like these where they're reimagining or revisiting tales and myths and sort of retelling them in a way that is palatable but also sort of geared towards women and their experiences. So I think I've kind of hit a point now where I expect a little bit more, or a little or something that makes me search a little harder, like inside myself. There wasn't a lot of stories where I was like, oh yeah, like I really feel this, I've really lived through this. I was just like, yeah, I know what this is. I've done this, but like not anything that made me really introspective. That being said, I did really enjoy the book. I don't want that to sort of diminish how much I liked the book. Like I said before in other reviews, I really enjoy books like these, of this type, and I enjoy folk tales and myths and things like that on a regular basis. So I really enjoyed this book. I will say my favorite story was No Country for Old Women, I believe is what it's called. and it has to do with the telling of the story of one of like the famous goddesses of Ireland, and it's like a hag goddess who I'm not very familiar with, and I know her name. I can't actually pronounce it, so I wrote it down for you guys. So it has to do with her and her story, and I thought it was the most poignant of the stories. I really thought that one resonated the most with me. The reason I can't pronounce it is because I don't speak Gaelic or any sort of like Welsh old language whatsoever, so I don't have the tongue for it. I don't speak any other languages except for English and American Sign Language, which you don't have to speak American Sign Language, so I don't have to actually master that. But also, I went to go look up the pronunciation, thinking I was going to be like doing my research this time, and this is what they had for the pronunciation, and just that's an apostrophe K, A, L, exponential J, upside down E, and an X. I don't know what that is. I didn't know that letters could be exponential. And yeah, so if you're looking that up, there was a couple others that were also interestingly arranged underneath how to pronounce that. And then I listened to about 1 million, probably 2, videos on how to pronounce it. And I can't wrap my tongue around it. So I'm not even going to attempt to, because that's going to be the sad butchering of this really cool deity's name. So I'm not doing it. But that was my favorite story. It was about her, and it also had enough of an impact on me to make me go look up more of her story and her lore. And I actually wrote her down on my list of goddesses to do a little more research into, just because her story was the one that resonated the most. But otherwise, I found it a very enjoyable read, you guys. It was interesting. There was stories about the Huldra. There was stories about, the fisherman's wife. There's a story that was kind of like a Selkie, but wasn't a Selkie story. There was... Just brain stop now that I have decided to brag about how I did my research. There were stories in here. That's what I'm saying. And they were good stories. There was a story about Melusine. That was a French tale about this dragon-tailed mermaid lady. Really interesting story. That's not the story at all. But I love the telling of it in this. A story about Flowerface, whose name is also an old, like, Celtic, Gaelic sort of word that I can't say. It starts with a B. That story was really sort of interesting, and like the tone of the narrator was really powerful for that story, so it really got the message of that story across. And so I would definitely recommend, if you have the option to get the audiobook, because I think that was probably the most enjoyable way for me to have gotten these stories. I don't know if I would have gotten the same impact at all. I might have got a different impact reading the physical copy, but I did really appreciate the narrators and the work that they did for it. I think that they made the listening experience really enjoyable, and I would recommend this book, especially if you're on the same sort of train of books that I have been on, or you're looking for retellings of folktales. This would definitely be one I would recommend. I do like Sharon Blackie, and I'm interested to read some more of her works. And like I said, I have her on my list. So thank you, Belle, for the recommendation. And that's going to be it for me. You guys, have you read this book? Let me know in the comments below. And can you say this? Also let me know. We'll keep this conversation going. Until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Happy travels. Bye.